The Odyssey, Book 4, The Visit to King Menelaus, who tells the story. Meanwhile, the suitors in Ithaca plot against Telemachus. Now when the sun had set and darkness was over the land, they reached the low-lying city of Sparta, where they drove straight to the abode of Menelaus, and found him in his own house feasting with his many clansmen in honor of the wedding of his son, and also his daughter, whom he was marrying to the son of that valiant warrior, Achilles. He had given his consent and promised her to him while he was still at Troy, and now the gods were bringing the marriage about. So he was sending her with chariots and horses to the city of the Myrmidons, over whom Achilles' son was reigning. For his only son had found a bride from Sparta, the daughter of Alector. This son, Megapenthus, was born to him of a bondwoman, for heaven vouchsafed Helen no more children after she had borne Hermione, whom was fair as golden Aphrodite herself. So the neighbors and kinsmen of Menelaus were feasting and making merry in his house. There was a bard also to sing to them and play his lyre, while two tumblers went about performing in the midst of them, when the man struck up his tune. Telemachus and the son of Nestor stayed their horses at the gate, whereon Eteoneus, servant of Menelaus, came out, and as soon as he saw them, ran hurrying back into the house to tell his master. He went close up to him and said, Menelaus, there are some strangers come here, two men who look like the sons of Zeus. What are we to do? Shall we take their horses out, or tell them to find friends elsewhere, as best they can? Menelaus was very angry and said, Eteoneus, son of both us, you never used to be a fool, but now you talk like a simpleton. Take their horses out, of course, and show the strangers in that they may have supper. You and I have stayed often enough at other people's houses before we got back here, where heaven grants that we may rest in peace henceforward. So Eteoneus bustled back and bade the other servants come with him. They took their sweating steeds from under the yoke, made them fast to the mangers, and he gave them a feed of oats and barley mixed. Then they leaned the chariot against the end wall of the courtyard, and led the way into the house. Telemachus and Pisistratus were astonished when they saw it, for its splendor was as that of the sun and moon. Then, when they had admired everything to their heart's content, they went into the bathroom and washed themselves. When the servants had washed them and anointed them with oil, they brought them woolen cloaks and shirts, and the two took their seats by the side of Menelaus. The maidservant brought them water and beautiful golden ewer, and poured it into a silver basin for them to wash their hands, and she drew a clean table beside them. Another servant brought them bread, and offered them many good things of what there was in the house, while the carver fetched them plates of all manners and meats and set cups of gold by their side. Menelaus then greeted them, saying, Fall to and welcome. When you have done supper, I shall ask who you are, for the lineage of such men as you cannot have been lost. You must be descended from a line of scepter-bearing kings, for poor people do not have such sons as you are. On this he handed them a piece of far fat roast loin, which had been set near him at being a prime of art, and they laid their hands on good things that were before them. As soon as they had enough to eat and drink, Telemachus said to the son of Nestor, with his head so close that no one might hear, Look, Pisistratus, man after my own heart, see the gleam of bronze and gold, of amber, ivory, and silver. Everything so splendid that is like seeing the palace of Olympian Zeus. I am lost in admiration. Menelaus overheard him and said, No one, my sons, can hold his own with Zeus, for his house and everything about him is immortal. But among mortal men, well, there may be another who has much wealth as I have, or there may not, but at all events, I have traveled much and have undergone much friendship. For it is nearly 8 years before I could get home with my fleet. I went to Cyprus, Phoenicia, and the Egyptians. I went also to the Ethiopians and Sidonians and the Arabians, and to the Libya, where the lambs have horns so soon as they are born, and the sheep lamb yawn 3 times a year. Everyone in that court where their master's son has plenty of cheese, meat, and good milk for the ewes, yield all the year round. But while I was traveling and getting great riches among these people, my brother was secretly and shockingly murdered through the perfidy of his wicked wife, so that I have no pleasure in being bored of all his wealth. Whoever your parents may be, they must have told you all about this, and of my heavy loss in the ruin of a stately mansion, fully magnificently furnished. Would that I had only a third of what I now have, so that I had stayed at home, and all those who were living, who perished on the plain of Troy, far from Argos. I often grieve, as I sit here in my house, for one and all of them. At times I cry aloud for sorrow, but presently I leave off again, for crying is called comfort, and one soon tires of it. Yet grieve for these I may, I do so for one man more than for them all. I cannot even think of him without loathing both food and sleep, so miserable does he make me, for no one of the Phaeacians worked so hard or risked so much as he did. He took nothing by it, and has left a legacy of sorrow to myself, for he has been gone a long time, and we know not whether he is alive or dead. His old father, his long-suffering wife Penelope, and his son Telemachus, whom he left behind him, an infant in arms, are plunged in grief on his account. Thus spoke Menelaus in the heart of Telemachus, yearned as he bethought him of his father. Tears fell from his eyes as he heard him thus mentioned, so that he held his cloak before his face with both hands. And when Menelaus saw this, he doubted whether to let him choose his own time for speaking, or to ask him at once and find what it was all about. While he was thus in 2 minds, Helen came down from her high vaulted and perfumed room, looking as lovely as Artemis herself. Adreste brought her a seat, Alcippe a soft woolen rug, while Philo fetched her the silver-worked box which Alcandra, wife of Polybus, had given her. Polybus lived in Egyptian Thebes, which is the richest city in the whole world. He gave Menelaus 2 baths, both of pure silver, 2 tripods, and 10 talents of gold. Besides all this, his wife gave Helen some beautiful presents, to wit, a golden distaff and a silver-worked box that ran on wheels with a gold band round the top of it. Philo now placed this by her side, full of the fine spun yarn, and the distaff charged with a violet-colored wool was laid upon the top of it. Then Helen took her seat, put her feet upon the footstool, and began to question her husband. Do we know, Menelaus, said she, the names of the strangers who have come to visit us? Shall I guess right or wrong, but I cannot help saying what I think. Never yet have I seen either man or woman so like somebody else. Indeed, when I look at him, I hardly know what to think, as this young man is like Telemachus, whom Odysseus left as a baby behind him, when you Phaeacians went to Troy, and with battle in your hearts of the account of my most shameless self. My dear wife, replied Menelaus, I see the likeness just as you do. His hands and feet are just like Odysseus, so is his hair, the shape of his head, and the expression of his eyes. Moreover, when I was talking about Odysseus, and saying how much he had suffered on my account, tears fell from his eyes, and he hid his face in his mantle. Then Pisistratus said, Menelaus, son of Atreus, You are right in thinking that this young man is Telemachus, but he is very modest and is ashamed to come here and begin opening up discourse with one whose conversation is so divinely interesting as your own. My father, Nestor, sent me to exhort him hither, for he wanted to know whether you could give him any counsel or suggestion. A son has always trouble at home when his father has gone away, leaving him without supporters, and this is how Telemachus is now placed, for his father is absent, and there is no one among his own people to stand by him. Bless my heart, replied Menelaus, and I am receiving a visit from the son of a very dear friend who suffered much hardship for my sake. I had always hoped and detained him with the most marked distinction. When heaven had granted us a safe return from the body of the seas, I should have founded a city for him in Argos, and built him a house. I should have made him leave Ithaca with his goods, his son, and all his people, and should have sacked for them some one of his neighboring cities that are subject to me. We should thus have seen one another continually, and nothing but death could have interrupted so close and happy an intercourse. I suppose, however, that heaven grudged us such great good fortune, for it has prevented the poor fellow from ever gazing home at all. Thus did he speak, and his words set them all weeping. Helen wept, Telemachus wept, and so did Menelaus, nor could Pisistratus keep his eyes from filling when he remembered his dear brother Antilochus,